Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. Well, I was all set to do this video, and then this morning I noticed that Canon has announced two new cameras, mirrorless cameras, and a new lens, a budget lens, kit lens. The very budget APS-C R50 and the budget entry-level full-frame R8. Doesn't change a whole lot about what I'm going to say, but it does kind of affect my thoughts. Recently, I was perusing one of the online photography forums. Sometimes when I do that, I'm sorry I did, because I think, as we all know, those things can turn into real shows. But in one of the Micro Four Thirds forums, I don't know how people get these ideas, but somebody was all upset because of the contrast detect autofocus that Panasonic has added to the S5 Mark II. And they're saying that they're not paying any attention to Micro Four Thirds. Micro Four Thirds is, LUMIX Micro Four Thirds is dead. They're going to drop it. I mean, this is after they launched the GH6 several months ago. And they just announced an update to the 12 to 35 millimeter f2.8 lens, which brings Leica badging to that. Some changes in the glass formulation. The optical design appears to be the same, and I'm guessing coatings are changing as well. It seems to me a company that is about to drop a particular line of cameras wouldn't be investing the way they are investing. And I get it. Some people are really upset that phase detect autofocus didn't make it into the GH6. And by the way, it's really kind of important, I think, to know how phase detect works. So if you don't, I got a link down in the description so you can see exactly what that does. I mean, back when I started photography, the focusing screen in SLRs at the center had what was called a split image rangefinder, which essentially allowed your eye and brain to do phase detect. But I get it. You know, people are upset because they laid out a lot of money for a GH6 and it doesn't have phase detect. But as someone who's involved in my career in technical sales, I was somewhat involved in product planning at some companies I worked for. And, you know, what happens is, if the decision was made to add phase detect to the S5 Mark II past a certain point in the development of the GH6, and let's say the sensor for the GH6 had already been decided upon. They were way past that when they decided we better put phase detect in the S5 Mark II, which I think was a good decision. Going back and trying to change that in the GH6 probably would have cost quite a bit of money. So, yeah, there's taking that hit with certain people that are going to be upset about that. I think that is a minority of people. I don't think it's going to hurt Panasonic terribly much. See what the next Micro Four Thirds Lumix body that has phase detect is. It would be nice if it were a G9, more photocentric camera, but I would completely understand if it's like a GH6S or GH6 Mark II. Regarding that Leica branded 12 to 35 millimeter f2.8, so I am right now filming on a G9 and a 12 to 35 millimeter f2.8, the second version, Mark II. I don't think they actually call it that. The second version works with dual IS2. The original version only works with the original dual IS. Obviously, the Leica branded version they're coming out with is going to work with dual IS2. Looking at the specs, I think my personal opinion is if you've got the second version, there's really no reason to upgrade. I mean, it's got a little bit closer focusing on the Leica version. I don't really use that lens to do a whole lot of close focusing stuff. You know, I think maybe if you have the first version, you might want to think about the upgrade, but even then, you might want to wait and watch those folks who are going to upgrade without question from whatever version they have. And so you're going to see a bunch of 12 to 35 ones and twos on the used market, and you'll be able to get a deal. Speaking of which, I would think the next logical step for Panasonic is a Leica branded version of the 35 to 100. And that would be cool. Again, I doubt it's going to have enough enhancements for me to upgrade. The one thing on this lens is if they do that, and they do improve the close focusing, because this is the 12 to 35, again, a Mark II version, works with dual IS-2, and it will focus to 2.8 feet, which is 0.85 meters. That's not terribly close. So when I want to do some close-ups with this 35 to 100, I use a Canon 500D dual element. This is a +2 diopter in diopter terms, close-up attachment, 58 millimeter. Canon has stopped making these. I pretty much confirmed that. So you can find them on eBay occasionally. There are others available. If you go online and find them, just search for like a +2 diopter close-up lens, dual element. Dual element means they're highly corrected. You're going to have less problems with chromatic aberration, but it's nice because just screw it into the lens and you're good to go. Don't forget to take it off, because suddenly you see something happening far away and why won't the lens focus? Yeah. I've done it. Any thoughts that Panasonic is going to drop Micro Four Thirds? I mean, look, these Canon cameras are coming out. They're coming out with APS-C cameras, which are going to directly compete with things like the G95 and G85, which I think Panasonic is still manufacturing. So to me, it would make no sense at all when you're trying to put out cameras that will maybe be the next step from a phone to going to an interchangeable lens camera. They're not going to drop Micro Four Thirds. Of course, Canon has an advantage, and the advantage is that their full-frame lenses fit their APS-C bodies, whereas there's no adapter for putting an L-mount lens on a Micro Four Thirds camera, and because the back focus distance is very similar, any adapter is going to change that back focus on the L-mount lens, and you're not going to have infinity focus. You'd have to have an adapter that has an optical element that corrects that, and then you're going to run the risk of image quality issues. So, but I really think that, thinking that Micro Four Thirds is going anywhere within the Panasonic family, it's just kind of a silly thought. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think. If you disagree, that's fine. Put them in the comments. If you enjoyed this, hey, bop that like button. If you're a subscriber, thank you so much. Closing in on 1,000. See if we can get this done by the end of March. I think it's doable. Thanks for watching. I'm Todd Banner. I will see you next time.